I can't be a fucking podcast host. No one's ever gonna want to watch my episodes. No one's ever gonna want to come on my show.
Your belief is gonna dictate those things. The hardest thing to change is your belief.
For someone who's schizophrenic, if they think they're on fire, they actually feel that pain. They're not actually on fire, but they actually feel that pain.
Go through college, learn all you have to do, make something out of yourself.
You need to take advantage of every fucking opportunity you're given because you never know what can come from it. Welcome back, everybody, to the #1 podcast in the world. I'm your host, Cal Mahdi, and I got a very special treat for you guys here today. As you know, I bring on a lot of young, successful people with an online business or who are involved in social media, but I'm bringing in a little bit of a different taste here today. He is young, he is successful, he is killing it, he does own his own business, but it's not necessarily focused on social media. Today I got for you guys Tadas, who's the owner and founder of Tavo Sleep, and in my opinion, the sleep tech king, if not the future sleep tech king. So first and foremost, a very warm welcome to you, my man, Tadas. Thank you for coming on. How you feeling today?
Hey, thank you. I'm feeling great, man. Thanks for bringing me on. This is going to be awesome.
Hell yeah.
Excited,
yeah, absolutely.
Excited to talk.
So tell the people a little bit about Tavo. Tell the people a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish in this industry. Just tell them what we're going to be talking about here today.
Yeah, so Tavo is a next generation alarm clock. We're essentially reinventing the alarm clock. Nowadays, people wake up to their phones and they have 10 alarms set on their phones. The idea is Tavo is a personal alarm clock, one that vibrates on your wrist and also works with your sleep cycle to wake you up when your body is essentially ready to wake up. And that's the kind of gist of it. I think as a company, we think alarm clocks are fundamentally outdated. We've been waking up with sound for over 2,000 years, and we're ready to change that. That's kind of the gist of it. I guess this started out in, I don't know if you want me to go into how it started or what.
Yeah, we'll lead into all of it. First and foremost, what I see is that, #1, you're trying to disrupt the market here.
Exactly.
So you're a true disruptor to the sleep market and just the sleep tech market in specific. But how old are you, Tadas?
I'm 25.
25 years old. And how long ago did you start this company?
About 4 years ago. So in college, out of University of Illinois.
So 21 years old, out of the University of Illinois, you decided that not only did you want to start your own company, but you wanted to design and create your own product, a product that actually exists and is standing here between us today. And I just want to, just for a moment, talk about how fucking special that is, because you don't know how many stupid invention ideas I've ever had throughout my life, or anyone has had, but actually bringing it to life and taking those first 1, 2, and 3 steps to have an actual product that was once just a vision in your head and now being something that people all over the world are able to buy and improve their lives with. That's fucking crazy. But where did it all start? So you're 21 years old, you're at the University of Illinois. How did you come up with Tavo?
Yeah, it's crazy that you mentioned that, actually, because 4 years ago, it was just an idea. It was literally just in my head. And I was writing it all over the walls and writing it on pieces of paper, my master vision, vision boards. And I was one day this is gonna be a reality. It's gonna, if I keep working towards it, it will come. And so now this is actually crazy that you point that out, that it's actually a product and people are using it and people are saying good things about it. They're raving about it. And they said, a lot of people say that they've completely forgotten their phone alarm and they started using the Tavo to wake up. But how it started was, I was in college, freshman year, first class, and it was this engineering class. They throw you in and you have to come up with a problem and a solution. So my problem was that my roommate kept waking me up with his alarm, and I was this is just something I should just kind of go for.
One of those every 5-minute motherfuckers you're talking about?
Yeah, no, it was a 20 minutes just constant. So
bro,
it was
bro, before you get into the rest of the story, we got to talk about this shit, because everyone has lived with someone like that, whether it was their brother, their sister, maybe even themselves. If you haven't lived with someone, you probably are that person. That's so fucking annoying, man. My older brother was the same. It's you set an alarm for every 5 minutes and it's not even waking them up. They're just waking everyone else up so that they could wake themselves up.
Right.
So that's funny as fuck. So you were living with one of those roommates. He's pissing you off in the mornings.
Yeah, and I'm just dang, this pisses me off every morning. you know, I gotta like come up with a solution for this in my engineering class. I wasn't thinking anything far in the future. I was just like, all right, let's just solve this problem. And essentially we were thrown into this engineering class, like create a solution to a problem. And that was like when I was first like faced with, all right, like we actually have to do it. Like how am I gonna actually do it? And because I was an engineer and had a little bit of like engineering like mindset and I wanted to be an engineer, I started like looking into, okay, how do we actually put this on a physical device? Like what kind of program do we need to use? What kind of hardware do we need to use? And at the end of the class, we created something out of Xbox rumblers. So those Xbox remote rumblers, I took some out and it was essentially like a huge device, but it worked. We coded it so that it would wake you up, you know, with vibration. And it was super cool to just like see that come to life. And I guess that was like the first step of like getting in there, like figuring out something that I didn't know how to do at all, like how to code and how to put together a hardware piece. I had a team of, I think like 3 people at that time. And it wasn't even a company. It was just like a project in a class. And yeah, it was like the first like coming to life of Tavo, which was at that point just named the silent alarm clock, because that's all the functionality it had. And then later on, it was like 2 or 3 years later, I found out this way to like wake up, and it was a phone app basically, and you would put it by your bed, and it would listen to when you're in your light sleep or when you're moving, and it would go off, like it would start to basically ring. And at that point, I was like laying in bed my first night, and I like moved, and I was like, wow, like the alarm is going off, like this is magic, like this device knows when I'm already awake, like the phone app, whatever. And I got really big into that. I was like, dang, like it really helped me, because I was working a sales job. I was like sleeping like 5-6 hours, and I had to get up. So like when it wasn't the right time to get up was like super, it was bad. It was like I was groggy, you know, like we all feel like how we wake up after a dream is maybe like super awake and alert versus like an alarm just like interrupting your sleep. And you're like, what is going on? So I had to like look for solutions. And so that was like the first solution I found. And then I started showing my friends, like I was like, hey, you guys got to use this. You guys got to use this app. Like it's so wicked. It's like, it's like incredible how like it just knows that I'm awake. But I guess that app didn't really work for people, because some people have a fan on in the room, or like they have, you know, if you have another person in your bed or in your room, just like roommates, like that disrupts the sound. And it didn't really work for people. So I was like, dang, like I wish it really did work for people.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Maybe there's a better way. I just thought, I guess junior year comes around, and I get thrown into an entrepreneurship class. So this wasn't engineering anymore. This was entrepreneurship. I was starting to take some entrepreneurship classes, and the professor, so he fundamentally, like, he started speaking about this different way of like life, and it was the entrepreneurship life. It was what his parents taught him. So his parents taught him to not necessarily like go through college, get an MBA, all that, and then go join a job. It was more like go through college, like learn all you have to do, and then make something out of yourself. And
what a fucking different standpoint from like old school parents, especially obviously the professor, I'm assuming, was older. We don't see that. Yeah. I mean, it's so rare. Like our parents being you're first gen, right?
Yeah.
Our parents being first generation, they almost advise us like the complete opposite. They think that unless you're going to become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever the fuck else, the chances of actually being successful are so slim. So damn, I mean, that professor is fucking lucky. But
yeah.
I want to just highlight that at this point in your story, you did the project for your engineering class, but you still weren't thinking to yourself that like, I want to build a company out of this, right? 3 years later, you identified a separate problem where you found that the app was extremely helpful to you, but it wasn't necessarily effective enough to help everyone, right?
Exactly, yeah.
But I want to pause here before we get into the next part of your story, because what you talked about with the app was that it was waking you up in your light sleep,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
This is what I think most people don't know. They know the feeling of waking up one day and it being fucking impossible to get out of bed. They know the feeling of waking up one day and feeling great. They know the feeling of waking up on time without even having to use an alarm.
Yeah.
But people don't really understand why. Can you
true.
tell me more about like what are circadian rhythms? What does that even mean? What is the difference between waking up in your light sleep versus your dark sleep? But we'll start with just what is a circadian rhythm? Like what the fuck does that even mean?
So I guess circadian rhythm is a little bit different. It's more of like when your body naturally rises and when it goes to sleep. And when we rise, like our cortisol goes up. I don't know, I forgot the other like hormone, but it's essentially how our body clocks work.
Okay.
Now sleep cycles.
So there's two separate things. Sleep cycles and circadian rhythms are different.
Two separate things. Now sleep cycles are what happens when we sleep. So most people, I don't know, this is how I thought about sleep before I found out about this. It's that we just kind of fall asleep and then we wake up after a certain time, right? That's how everyone thinks about sleep, or I guess most people. But now like we start hearing these like sleep cycles, and what are these sleep cycles? So essentially sleep cycles are, we sleep in 90-minute cycles. So like we have little cycles that we go down into and then come up and then wake up briefly and then go back down in those sleep cycles. And we cycle through these cycles at night, and they consist of like 4 stages. So there's light sleep, which is the beginning.
Okay.
Then there's light sleep 2, goes a little bit deeper. Then it's deep sleep, where you're like completely like out, not moving. And then there's REM, which is the dream state. And so once we cycle through that, we go back to light sleep again, and we like wake up briefly. We don't remember usually when we wake up in the middle of the night, but we do briefly wake up, we reposition, we turn over, and we just go back to bed.
Right.
And so our night usually consists of 5 to 6 of these sleep cycles, and we wake up, you know, either naturally at the end of a sleep cycle in the morning, or this is why alarm clocks are so like intrusive to our sleep, is because they come in and they just cut off a sleep cycle, and they wake you up right in the middle. So like what happens during these sleep cycles is our brains go through processes. They save information and they get rid of information. So during the deep sleep, we are getting rid of information, and during REM sleep, dream sleep, we're saving information to our brain. Okay. So like these processes are so important. And when we cut them off, like your body's like, what the heck? Like I still want to sleep. And that's why we feel groggy when we wake up, and we're like to an alarm clock, that is, and we feel confused because our body wants to continue sleeping. Okay,
so basically, like when it comes to these sleep cycles, right? We're setting an alarm for a specific time, but that time has no connection or alignment with the sleep cycles that we're in. So even if I set my alarm for 5 a.m. every single day, the difference between how I'm feeling when that alarm goes off is dependent on the sleep cycle that I was in, the stage of the sleep cycle that I was in when that alarm goes off. And basically you're saying that the days where that alarm goes off and it literally like feels impossible to get out of bed, and all I could do is move my arm to snooze the fuck out of it, is when it's waking me up in deep sleep, versus when my alarm goes off and I'm feeling good and kind of getting ready to just can pop out of bed, it's waking me up in my light sleep.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. So like, I don't know, this, I always say like, you can remember it. For example, if you have like a really vivid dream and then you wake up out of the dream and you're like all of a sudden super awake and just like super like ready to go. And that's waking up in light sleep. So that's what we're trying to mimic with our device, is waking you up at that time versus when you're in the middle of your sleep cycle and you know your brain wants to still go through these processes and whatever and heal and save information. So that's how that works. That's how sleep cycles work. And so our device, it exactly. You don't set a time for 5 a.m. in the morning. You would set it for 4:30 to 5 a.m. And so in that period of 30 minutes, it would sense when you're in your light sleep, and it's essentially vibrating to then wake you up. You can also change that to do 45 minutes or even an hour. So depending on kind of like how long you're sleeping, that differs. Whether you want to set a 30-minute or 15-minute or 45-minute timer.
That's fucking sick. That's fucking sick.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm getting it. Okay, because like, I'll be honest with you. Like, I remember when I first saw your brand, because like I have a lot of friends that have worked with you on Tavo, and I was thinking that it was basically just, instead of waking up with sound, you're waking up with vibration.
Yeah.
But it's so much deeper than that. That's just what it was when you had a bulky Ben 10 watch in your fucking engineering class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not just waking you up with vibration versus with sound. It's also, instead of waking you up at 5 a.m., it's setting a time frame for it to wake you up in the most optimal stage of your sleep cycle, which in this case is light sleep.
Yeah. So if it were just a regular vibrating alarm and it would vibrate in your dream sleep or your deep sleep, like, it wouldn't be the same. It probably wouldn't wake you up. So the reason it works really well is because we do target that light sleep. And it's like a combination. Like you said, it's not just waking you up in vibration, but it's a combination of that and doing it in the right state, like when your body's ready to.
Perfect. All right, I want to go back to your story because now I'm wondering, like, how the fuck did you even get this to work? How the fuck did you even get this to stop looking like a Ben 10 watch? And also be able to just track people's sleep cycles? I mean, that's wild in and of itself. So, all right, you went to your engineering class, you got your Ben 10 watch. You're not necessarily selling it or making a company out of it. 3 years later, you get into this entrepreneur class. Your professor has like a much different way of thinking, which you were able to realize, meaning that he had an entrepreneurship mindset. And what happened from there once you had started that class and it was your junior year of college?
Yeah, so I was telling him about this idea. I was like, yeah, I have this idea of like waking people up in light sleep through vibration. And I have like this other, like, we could just, right now it only works vibration. There's no like light sleep. And I'm thinking of like maybe doing the first one first and then the second one. He's like, no. He's like, just go for like that innovative idea. I like that. Like, just go for it. And I was like, okay. And that was kind of the vibe of the class. Like, you had to just get in. And in the first class, I think it was either in the first or second class, you had to have an idea and you had to go for it. And I was like, all right, like, what is it that I'm going to go for? I forgot about this Ben 10 watch like 3 years ago that I made. And it got me thinking. I was like, well, you know what? This kind of makes sense. Like, I do want to actually like maybe build this and see, you know, just see like another class thing. But at that point, he's like, well, after, you know, the class, you can take it and you can actually maybe try to do something with it, like some other examples or whatever. And yeah, that's when it kind of started off. It was January 2019. I think that was the class that I was in. And yeah, it was like technology entrepreneurship. And so I just kind of got after it. First, it was a bunch of slide decks, like a bunch of like getting the idea on paper and actually like figuring out why you're doing it, figuring out what the reason was. And I had a lot of examples. Like, I had the app, I had the Ben 10 watch, and it just kind of like made sense. So I had enough of that like why or enough of that reason to kind of be like, all right, you know, let's just go for it. And that's how it essentially started. So
at this point, was it still just a project for you for that entrepreneur class, or had it become at this point like a mission in terms of actually building a company out of it?
I think at this point it was still a project.
Okay.
So yeah, it was still a project, and I went through like, so we started building it, or I started kind of like making all these slide decks and stuff, and then we got into this like competition. It was called like COZAD, and it was just a bunch of entrepreneurs on campus, and like you had to essentially like present your idea and have like a board on it. And I think at that point, so that was at the end of the semester or mid-semester, I don't remember exactly, but it was like outside of the class. And I was like, all right, well, I had this like poster and everything, and I had like my teammates with me. And then like some people came over and they were like, or this one guy actually from Chicago, and he was like, hey, like I really like this idea. And I was like, okay, like cool. I've only heard that a couple times. Like it's good to hear that like you like this idea. And so that's when it kind of started like brewing. And I was like, okay, well, this would be kind of cool to actually take and just make into a product. And at first it was a joke. We called it like I said, we called it the silent alarm clock. And it was just like, it wasn't like really that I was thinking of making a company, but I was just kind of trying to do something.
Yeah. I want to highlight something before we move forward in your story here. And it's that like, okay, even though this was still just considered a project for you, to actually like successfully put the project together, you had to put it together, right? Mm-hmm. So whether or not you had seen it as like a company that you would build in the future, you realized that in order for you to actually put the pieces together, you had to start taking action by actually putting things on paper, putting your ideas and your thoughts on paper, organizing them on slide decks, on your wall, on whatever the fuck you had in front of you to write on. And that's what most people don't realize, is that like, you don't have to have it all figured out yet. Whether you want to start a product, or you want to start a business, or you want to start creating content on social media, all you have to do is actually start. You know what I mean? And you can start 100%. In the smallest way possible. And for you, that smallest way was just putting your ideas on paper in a slide deck. And it eventually started to form into this concept of bringing all of your ideas together to land on what is today the Tavo Sleepwear product. Right?
Yeah, no, 100%. You touched on a good point of like starting to do things. And like my mindset at that point was focus on the next couple steps. Like I didn't know, I knew my vision. I knew where I wanted to get, what the company, like, you know, in the end might look, or where I wanted to be. But it was so much about the next step, because once you take the next step, something can change, and you don't want to think like 5 steps ahead, but really like, what are the two things that could really move the needle forward the most? That's what I was focused on in the beginning. The fact that I was young and didn't really know much, and didn't really think about all like how hard it would be, or all the different possibilities. Like, I think that actually helped me, just like not knowing and being like, let's just focus on the next step. Like I thought, you know, maybe thinking back, I'd be like, yeah, like we can build this in 3-4 years and like be done with it. And maybe if I like, I don't know, maybe if I knew that it would take longer than that, or it'd be harder than that, like I wouldn't have ever like necessarily wanted to do entrepreneurship. But I just kind of like was so focused on, yo, let me get to the next step. Let me, you know, either build a product, or like talk to someone, or, you know, come up with like a proposal for a, like an accelerator. It was just all about like the next step. So that was a big mindset that I did have.
Yeah, for sure. I think like if you got hung up on or stuck on figuring it all out from the very beginning, versus just focusing on what's in front of you and the next step that you can take, you would have just stayed frozen. And that's what I see a lot of people do when they come up with an idea, or they want to start a business, is they get too hung up on having it all figured out versus just taking action and figuring it all out along the way. I compare this to like a horse in a stampede, right? When a horse is running, if they focus on anything besides what's in front of them, they'll tumble over themselves. Like horses that race, like stallions and the people that ride them, if they focus on anything besides for what's directly in front of them, they'll actually tumble over themselves and they'll just fall. And that goes for life as well. As if all you have to do is just focus on directly what's in front of you versus what doesn't even exist yet. And you having that mindset, maybe based off of the circumstances, which is, you know, a blessing for you. But at the end of the day, it allowed you to not get hung up on having it all figured out, or knowing how the device was going to work, or knowing what algorithm you were going to have to implement. Just what is this next step that I can take to move the needle?
A lot of people, you know, or like nowadays, like, I don't know, we think that we need to think it through. And even now in my, you know, daily life right now, like we need to think it through, and we need to like, we get this feeling, and then we need to think it through, and then we can act on it. But then while we're thinking it through, we might think of 1,000 reasons of why, you know, it could go wrong, or like 1,000 different ways it can go. That's why I think it's super important to be just focused on the next step, at least in the beginning. But that really helped in the beginning, at least, to just be kind of laser focused on that. Yeah,
I think a lot of people can learn from that, just as far as just, like I said, just take action and figure it out as you go. But okay, so at this point, like you were entered into this competition. Someone gave you a little bit of a push in terms of like telling you that they thought it was a good idea. Before we move forward, I do want to ask, do you know what the professor's name was for that entrepreneurship class?
Oh yeah, I remember the moment I asked him.
What was his name?
His name was Brian.
Professor Ryan?
Brian Lilly.
Shout out Professor Brian Lilly from the University of Illinois. And the reason that I say that is because what you talked about, I see is missing on a lot of college experiences and college campuses. And, you know, he gave the students an opportunity to take what they learned in college and apply it to real life, even if it wasn't getting a job, but more so starting their business. So just wanted to give a quick shout out to that professor, because when I talk about why school isn't the option, it's because of that not existing. So to hear that that does exist is honestly, it's a breath of fresh air, for lack of better terms.
I mean, it completely changed my life. Like, I really like that thinking. I've never heard it anywhere else before. Like, we grow up, you know, hearing from our parents and from society, from school, that like, all right, you get good grades to then get into a good college, to then go and, you know, graduate college with a good degree so that you can get a job.
And climb up the ladder and then wait 10 years, 15 years, and then finally retire. And that's why I respect that professor so much, is because he broke that stereotype. Especially being from someone who is older, that also his parents were able to influence him in that regard. That's fucking special. And if all professors were like that, the U.S. in itself would be 10 times more successful. But all right, so back to your story. Like, after you had entered into that competition and that guy told you he thought it was a good idea, what happened from there? We
were still a team, or there was like 3 of us, and I kind of just like gathered my roommates. You know, we should continue to work on this. And I remember like that summer, 2020, 2020. It was like May. I applied to this accelerator. It was part of our university, and I was like, I don't even know if like this is going to be right for us, if this is good. Like, I want to go to Chicago and I want to do this now. And I remember like not thinking anything of it. And then we got into this accelerator. It was the iVenture accelerator at University of Illinois. And that was like a really big moment, because we got granted $10K and we got put in a room with like 9 other teams. It was COVID, so like we were doing this online, but it was like the biggest break. I remember making a LinkedIn post that like entrepreneurship is just like climbing a mountain, and like we finally hit like this little valley, not a valley, but like this ridge where we could rest a little, but you still have to climb a lot higher.
Yeah.
You still have to keep going. And it was exactly that. Like, we got granted some money, and we ended up building a beta from ground up. We didn't have the Ben 10 device anymore. That was like in the relic pile. But what we wanted to do is create something that could be like used by someone, like used by the market. And so a beta device is something that's not public, but it's like your first go at, or alpha is your first go at. So we made an internal alpha. We like
a prototype?
Yeah, like a prototype. This is like engineering terms. So we made a little prototype, alpha, and then we started creating the beta. And that was like a huge leap, which like it was like more of like a team leap, because I wasn't the one coding it, but it was just like as a team, like getting through something that isn't working, like a little chip that has just no use, to like coding it to like actually just vibrate and wake you up. That was like the first step. And then we added the 30-minute time period, and then we started measuring like how people move through this 30-minute time period.
And these are just a bunch of fucking dumbass 20-year-olds just putting something
like,
together.
Just all my roommates, just like in the same room. And
you
like,
guys are beasts, man.
It was COVID, so like we got the blessing of all working together in one room, because we did all live together, and like other teams had to like communicate via Zoom, which I don't know how they did that, but we got this beta down, and it was like, all right, what's the next step? So at this point, I was thinking like, what is the next step? And the next step was to build a device that you can test in the market. So a minimal viable product, which is what you do as a company, as any company. You try to build the minimal like viable product, something that works at a minimal sense, but you can test with other people. So like I got this instruction from a professor, and I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to be focused on, building something that I can test with other people. And once we had that, then we started testing it with all of our friends, or like we had a whole survey going. We had a list of people who wanted to sign up and get
How many
one.
did you make, or were you just finding people that wanted it, or did you actually make these like a bunch of minimum viable products for people to test out?
Yeah, so we were able to order, I think it was like 60 of these devices. And at the end, it was even like over than that. It was like 90, but we ordered 60 like these little chips, and we were with a purpose of like, or with a goal of programming them, selling them for a small price, and having people give feedback to us. And that was a really cool part, because after we made the beta, like I remember just like boxing them up and like handing them out, or just driving back down to Champaign, because at this point I was already in Chicago. It was COVID, so like we had to whatever, like everyone was sent home, and it was actually like a cool moment of like bringing them to people and being like, yo, like I made this into a reality. Like this was this was once just in my head, like as an idea, and now it's a reality. And like that was so like powerful to see that. I don't know, I like that's all I wanted to do, was really just bring something out of my head into the world and help people with it. Like I have this innate goal of like helping people. Like I love serving, and I love like giving to people. I love like, something that I find in my life that's good, I want to share with other people.
I love
and
that.
That's where this comes from. Like I really like it was, and then it was, the combination of like, all right, let's, what seemed impossible to me then was then like completed after 3 years. And it kind of broke my reality of like, okay, like you can actually do this. Like, I don't know. I wanted to like prove to people that they could actually do this too.
Yes.
Like just bringing stuff out of you to then help people. Like, I feel like that, what my professor said 2 years ago or 3 years ago, that also impacted my mindset in that of like, bring stuff out of yourself, like almost like a creator rather than jump on and help, another job, which is cool. Like, like I'm not judging people's jobs, but I think entrepreneurship has really like stuck with me because it's a challenge. It's a new thing every single day. Like there was that time, and then there was the beta time, and now there's this time, and it's like a whole different job. It's a whole different thing that you have to do, that, you in different ways, like in marketing and in operations. Like now I'm more of a manager, not even like before I was like a solopreneur, grinding on this idea. And then there was a team that helped me build it up. And now there's a bigger team, and now I'm like a manager. So it's like, that's why I really enjoy entrepreneurship. I think it's the perfect, like I've always wanted a challenge in my life, and I never wanted a job that was like consistent, like doing the same thing over and over again, because I was just someone who would get bored all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to find myself in that situation. So like right now my life is not boring because I have shit to do every single day,
and every day is a
and
new
new
day.
stuff. Yeah. Like, I don't know. That's just a little bit about my entrepreneurship, but I really love like helping, or just like showing people better solutions, better things in life. Like, we're all trying to like, we're all here for each other at the end of the day, humans. And I think it's beautiful when you can like help another person and like serve another person. And that really all started off with sales. Like I learned that like sales isn't so much like pushing a product on someone else, but it's like giving people the opportunity and telling them about kind of almost like a better opportunity.
Something that could help them.
Exactly. And so, that's where my innate drive comes from, to continue to build this every day and to, just to like get up. And like, I find so much gratitude in it too, because I've been able to do this journey. I've been able to go through this, not even like versus like, I don't know, maybe like some people don't get the opportunity of being exposed to a professor like that, because there's few professors like that.
Yeah.
And so like, I feel like I really have to maximize that opportunity and that potential that I have. And so that's a little bit about.
I think you definitely do. There are two things that I've seen so far with you that I've actually seen with every single successful entrepreneur, whether they have an online business or a product similar to yours, or even they're just a content creator. And it's number one, the vision, right? When you were writing all of those things down all over your walls, all over the slide decks and whatever the fuck else you were writing on, you had a vision from the very beginning. And I've said this on so many episodes, but the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but not having a vision. And the second thing that I see with you that I've also seen with every other successful entrepreneur is a very strong purpose, right? To everyone else, this might just be a bracelet that wakes you up, but to you, it's a purpose. It's something that will help so many people's lives out there. And it comes back to something, just like you said, the way that you find something that helps you, you want it to help everyone else. And when you initially found that app that helped you tremendously when you were working that sales job and you were struggling to wake up every day, all you wanted to do was give people that same benefit that you had found. And that purpose is what's going to string you all the way through. I know, Tadas, that when we met, I actually said this to you before, but I want to say it here specifically. And it's about this moment in your story that you've gotten to, which is where you have the minimum viable product. You've been able to give out those 30 units for people to give you feedback on. And you talk about how that was such a powerful moment because something that was just an idea in your head now actually exists. You getting to that point is you've done it all already. When it comes to 1 million people having a Tavo Sleep product on their wrist, that's going to happen, and I'd bet my life on it simply because you've gotten to this point. Like, you've done, when it comes to your path of success, if success is here, and at this point in your journey you were all the way here, this is the hard part. Everything else is going to come easy. Is because getting to that point where your idea was something that actually existed in real life is the path and the journey that 99.99% of people won't get to. And the rest of it is just 0.1%. That'll all come with time. The hard work, the struggle, you've been through it all already. And you turned something that was just an idea into something that I can actually hold, that's sitting between us right now. And that's the hard part. So I remember when I said that to you, you were kind of like very immersed in it. And I'm just curious, like, what did that mean to you when I had said that? And what does it even mean to you now?
I mean, I've never heard that perspective before because I always have the perspective that the peak is still ahead of us. Like, the climb is still ahead. So, like, when you brought it back to that moment of like you went through all this, I hadn't thought about it that way. And I thought it was really cool. And you really kind of, you know, there's a lot of truth into that like to take something from 0 to 1 is can be really hard. That perspective, I never really like look back on that. I practice gratitude a lot and just like, you know, I'm grateful so much for this journey and everything, but I've never thought about it as like the hardest part. But you know, to a degree, I think it can be like when you're completely still and trying to get moving, that's like the hardest, versus if there's something already in motion, it's a lot easier to then pick up on it and just keep going.
Right.
And so that's why a lot of people, I don't know, maybe like buy businesses or do something like that where it's like the bare bones are set up and you just kind of have to put onto it. But now I feel like I'm like, I've gained the skill of taking something to 0 to 1. And I feel like now I have this capability of finding direction in whatever it is, like in any situation, finding a sort of direction and giving people direction. And that's what it's like really taught me, like, you know, going through and actually practicing and being an entrepreneur. Like, that's what it taught me, like, you know, throwing me in any situation in front of investors, in front of like really anything, and figuring my direction out and figuring like which way to go forward or giving other people direction. And that's why I'm like, I find more joy now and more fulfillment in leading people and leading my team and like giving them direction, because it's fun to like see someone grab onto a direction and just kind of take it. And like now, like, you know, I don't believe like I could do everything. So obviously that's like a natural progression. It's like you start off as a solopreneur, but then you have to almost like graduate to this like sense where you bring other people on. And now like I really, my what I like to do is like bring people on and just like see what they can do and kind of give them almost like direction, but like more so lean into what their strengths are and see what's inside of them and what can be brought out and almost like put on to Tavo and put on to the company. And so like the box, you know, it was not all my design. It was not all like my thinking. It was just, I had an idea and I texted my cousin. I was like, yo, like I have this idea for the box, but like you got to help me out because you're a designer. And she was like, all right. And it took me like 5 times I was like texting her. She wasn't getting back to me. And then finally, like we got on a call, 1 hour call, and she just did the whole box design. And I'm like, oh man, like this is awesome. This is amazing. Like, how did you do this? And then the box was born. And so now she's actually a designer full time at Tavo. And
nice.
we've been working together for a year, and it's been incredible because she has so much like talent inside of her that like it's amazing to see her bring that out of herself.
Of course.
Yeah, props to her for that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Like, to close up the topic from before, it's always going to be harder to go from 0 to 1 than it is to go from 2 to 100. So if you want to start anything in this life, whether it's a business or a product or even a relationship, just try to get from 0 to 1 and the rest of it will come easy. But on the point of being able to build a team, the concept you're talking about is what I call weighted believability, right? And it's basically about bringing people onto your team that you can give direction to based off of your vision for the company entirely. However, with what their specific focus is, you have more weighted believability and them having the creative freedom to bring your direction to life through their own skill set, which is a higher skill set than you have in that area, which is why you have more weighted believability towards them. So for example, with the individual that you mentioned, you brought her on and you knew which direction you wanted to go with Tavo, but you had more weighted believability in her skill set for design. So you were able to lean into that weighted believability, give her the creative freedom to come up with what is now today's Tavo box, but also everything else that's going to consist of Tavo's design in the future. And I think most entrepreneurs, especially when they're transitioning from that solopreneur state to really wanting to build a successful company, they can get hung up on not wanting to give away any pieces of their business. Now, that can be as vast and like as complex as giving away equity, or as simple as giving away like control over something like your design.
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So like giving away control over something or giving away equity, most entrepreneurs are selfish in that regard. And I think that's what can hold a lot of entrepreneurs back, because it comes down to the quote we heard from Garrett, which was like, would you rather have 100% of a grape or 10% of a watermelon? Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like, what has that journey looked like for you in terms of like, was it a challenge for you to give up control in certain areas in the beginning? And how did you really come to that state where you realized that it was more beneficial for the future of Tavo?
Yeah. I mean, I guess like theoretically first, when I was reading books, it was like, all right, like, you know, building teams, like you have to build a team. You can't build anything alone. You can, but you just would go a lot slower. I'm still working through that. I'm still working how to let go of like bits of control of Tavo, like the design, the marketing, and just kind of being like, you know, 80% is good enough as long as we can get it to like 80% with what I align with. Not even with what I align with, but I think it's like the first time it was kind of like the scariest time, like even bringing someone on as close as my cousin, and just like letting her take over the design it was like a scary jump. But I mean, I feel like the first time is always going to be the hardest. And I feel like that's just something you have to learn and accept, that if you want to build a big, good company, organization, at some point, like you can't, it was out of like almost out of necessity at a point, because there's so many things now that like we have to worry about as a company, whether it's IP, whether it's tech, hardware and software, whether it's design, marketing, whether it's
funding or sales.
Yeah, sales. Like there's so many different areas that I like almost like waited to the last minute, and I started doing things out of necessity, which is like, that's what happens if you wait till the last minute. You start doing things out of necessity. And it was almost like that. Like I didn't have enough, just like I needed some help with design. And I thought like, I was joking with her that this was like her internship or her like demo assignment.
Tryout.
Yeah, her trial that she did. And then I was like, wow, this is really good. And that's why she came on.
Hell
like
yeah.
If it wasn't for this box, she'd like, I don't know if we would have been working together, but I don't know, it just kind of goes like that. Like it's definitely still a struggle for me, and like less of a struggle now because I've brought on like 4 or 5 people that are kind of like part-time, full-time, and working with, you know, development companies. But yeah, it's just something that's going to be hard in the first, like with everything. Like we care, you know, when we build something, we care about it, whether it's whatever we do, and then letting go of that is going to be a bit of a challenge in the start. But I think it's just the way to go. And like I've always been motivated by doing things that are like scary for me, like uncomfortable. Like get comfortable being uncomfortable has been a huge thing for me. And like if there's something I don't feel like I can do, I almost like know for sure that's a goal of mine. And that was, starting with like the company. It was crazy. I had this like vision board in college, and my buddy who was big into sales, my mentor, he's the one who like got me into business, Jacob. Shout out Jacob. He was doing this exercise for us. Like we were all like in our apartment, and he was like the kind of like the teacher of showing us how to like advance, how to level up. And he took us through this vision board exercise, essentially like putting down like our nickname, like, or first closing our eyes and like meditating and just like kind of imagining ourselves like watching a movie about ourselves. And then he's like, all right, now just like start writing. And it was like nickname, like write your nickname. Like, what do you want to be known as? Write your taglines, write your values, write your, like what you're going to do for the next 30 days to get there, what you're going to do for the next 60 days to get there, 90 days. And then like your standards, your new standards, things that you want to try. And I started writing, and I wrote like Tavo Tadas as a joke, right? Like I wasn't like, I had barely started the company, and I was like, it'd be cool one day to just like people who know me like for starting this company. And like 3 years or like a couple of years ago, I mean, I'm just like looking at this thing, and it's like, well, shoot, like this is kind of like almost been happening, and it is happening. And so like all these things that I wrote in this vision board, like whether I was going to get a first sale, my first office, like first investors, like that all happened in that 1 year. And it didn't happen exactly how I wanted to. Like I wrote first office as in like, having an office in Chicago or something. But at the time it was COVID, and I was like stuck at home. I couldn't do much. But I had this place in my basement where I like shielded off with like some blankets, and I had my desk, and I had like a little Tavo logo up front. And I was just sitting there one day and just looking at that poster I had hung up right in front. And I was like, dang, well, I'm kind of sitting in an office here, and like I've never had a place to just like sit and work for Tavo. And like little things like that started coming true. And after I made that first vision board, I was like, all right, I have to make this every single year now. Like we have to keep going. And that's been a huge thing. Like that's how I got onto like the vision and the vision boards and just having a vision. I think it's like writing things down. Like there's one, it's one thing keeping things in your head and kind of like keeping them to yourself, or almost like just imagining them. Like we forget. We forget our thoughts. We have different emotions. But when you write something down on like, especially like on a vision board, you get to see it every day, and you get to like face that reality every day of like, I'm going towards this. I want to be moving this way. This is what I want to be building. This is what I have to be doing. These are my values. Like one of my, I think, values or quotes was like, success happens not in a day. Success happens daily, but not in a day. And I was like, that's almost like another, just like keep focused on what's in front of you, and not like, I don't know, go off and think too hard. But yeah, going back to these vision boards, like that is something that's been really huge in my life. And I like recommend anyone who has like a vision or a company idea or anything, just to like write it down, make a vision board on it. And so you can kind of look at it every single day and just focus like, okay, or get back into that zone of like, I want to do this. And like, I wrote this, at a certain point, and this is like, I'm seeing this every day now. And like, you then start logically, like your brain starts to see that every day, and you start acting towards it little by little. And I think like, I don't know, I told my friend about like writing stuff down once, and he was like, no, dude, I just keep everything in my head. And then I remember one day going over to his place, and he's like, dude, I started writing things down, and it's just incredible, like how different I feel. And I was like, yeah, like that's awesome to hear, because it all starts with literally like writing it down on a piece of paper, and then having like the mindset to keep going, and having the persistence to keep going through all the downfalls and like the roller coaster ride of one day thinking that, hey, like this is really going to work out. This is going to be $1 billion business. But then the next day you're like, I can't afford my groceries. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And so you really have to have something that centers you every every day. So now like I have stuff like that on my phone now. Like I keep it as my background just to get centered again every day.
Yeah, man, the vision is huge, and I talk about it a lot. It's like it's the 3 key principles of success for me. Number 1 is the vision, and it will always be number 1. Number 2 is self-belief, and number 3 is self-awareness. And having a purpose for all 3 of those things as well. But when it comes to the vision, it truly is so powerful. I have a vision written out that I read every single morning out loud, purposely out loud. And look, when it comes to writing a vision, like a lot of people might look at it and be like, bro, that's lame as hell, or that's not going to actually do shit. And like they think of it the same way that they think of manifestation, but no one has ever tried it and felt that way. That's the thing. You see, when you actually start practicing having a vision, it's almost as if you're training your brain. Because when I read that vision in the morning, how am I going to make a decision naturally that pulls me away from that vision? Versus just reading in the morning and naturally making decisions throughout my day that push me closer towards that vision.
Yeah.
It becomes like the perspective of life that you're living in is all towards making that vision come true. And that's honestly like the art of manifestation as well. Is you're reading that every single morning, you're training your brain, and you start naturally taking steps that push you closer to it rather than taking steps that pull you farther away from it. So again,
100%.
if you don't have a vision, it's going to be very hard for you to get anywhere in life, because it's just, and it's so simple. Like whatever you want to live, the day in your life that you're dreaming of having, just write it out and read it every single morning and see what happens. You know, that's what I tell people all the time is you can think it's lame, you could think it's bullshit, you could think it's whatever, but just try it. Like try the bullshit and then see how you feel about it.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's never been a single person that has ever tried it that didn't feel the benefits from it as well. So I do think that's extremely powerful. And I definitely want to talk a lot about, like, you know, we talked about the vision is one thing I've seen with every successful entrepreneur.
I would say for big things and small things too, like even the smallest things, going to a different type of gym. Like you should even like write that down or just like think about that. I mean, you think about it by first starting to write it down, but like, it doesn't have to be a company, you know, it doesn't have to be something as grand as that. I think just having any sort of like, you know, any sort of like goal that you have, big or small, it's like, it's important to have a vision about that. And it's important to like keep thinking about it in a positive way, because that's what eventually is going to lead you to it.
No, you're right. I mean, you could love your job and you can not want anything different out of your career, but you could still have a vision towards the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be about the business you want to start, or you don't even have to have some big goal.
Yeah.
You can be completely content with where you are in life, but then write a vision about how you want your life to look like versus how it currently looks. Whether that's like the way that you're showing up in your relationships, or the girl that you don't have yet, but you can write about that in your vision. Like, how do you want your future relationship to look like? Your family, your kids, all things considered. Like, it doesn't, you're very right. And actually, I don't think I've ever said that before. So it's beautiful that you brought it up.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be about some type of business you want to start or some type of goal you want to accomplish. It's simply about the life that you want to live and the person you want to be. Yeah. Right. So that is extremely important. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up.
Relationships, you know, like everything, you know, it's not just like we get sometimes us like entrepreneurs or people who are business focused, like we get too focused on business, but then like, you know, you don't want to lose out on the rest of life. Right. Like relationships, friends, like where you go travel, where like how you have fun, like, you know, those all can be put on the vision board. And like you can all, like those all were on my vision board. And now I'm looking back and I'm seeing these mountains on my vision board, these skiing mountains. And like this year I've gone skiing twice already.
Hell yeah.
And it's like even those little things kind of like have that vision. And like my relationship, like I've put like my relationship is like getting better and better, and it's like a blessing. And my relationship is thriving right now. Like it's all those like little things too that make up life. And it's not, you know, it's not just business or just the thing that you're going after. You can spread yourself a little bit, I think.
Yeah, you're right. And that's how like a vision can be applied to anyone in life. I don't give a fuck if you're a cashier at McDonald's and you're completely cool with being a cashier at McDonald's for the rest of your life. Yeah. You can still have a vision about the way you want to show up in your relationships, or where you want to go on vacation, or the type of house that you want to live in, all of that. You know what I mean? Just whatever makes you happy.
I've been so into now how like thoughts affect our actual reality, and how like positive thoughts or negative thoughts, like they just affect your reality so much. Like thoughts change our reality, because what we think about, we start doing. And then what we do becomes our day to day, and then our day to day becomes our life. And so like it literally all starts up here in your thoughts of like either having, you know, always thinking that you're gonna fuck up and do something like bad, or like life's gonna go bad. Like, yeah, like that's how it's gonna go. But if you flip that, like our brain can only think of positive or negative. So like we can't think of a negative thing and a positive thing at the same time. And if we switch that mindset and start focusing on like positive things, well, that starts affecting our life, and that starts affecting like our day to day and what thoughts we have about, like, I don't know, business, relationship, whatever. And so that's why I'm super big on like personal health and mental health. And like I go to the sauna and gym every single day. I really like I meditate every single day. Those things are gonna bring up your thoughts, like bring up your positivity, bring up how you're thinking day to day. And so that's going to be a reflection in your life. And it all starts really like with your thoughts. I think like I've seen a huge, I think the hardest thing to change is your belief. Like my belief that I had to change, that this was something like that I could potentially do, like that making something into a reality. That was like one belief that I had to change. And once I got something going, that belief like unlocked. And at the end of the day, like, I think like you can do things, but your belief is really going to dictate those things. Like if you don't think you can raise, I don't know, like $10 million, like say your company needs $10 million and you don't believe that, like you don't believe innately that you can take that money in and use it productively and like not waste it all. If you are thinking that way, like it's going to be harder to get. But if you, like once you fully believe that and accept that, that's like normal, it'll come to you.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, you're 100% on point with that. Like the power of your thoughts and how it could actually affect your life. I actually have an example that I like to use when I talk about this, but it starts with like, if you can control your thoughts, that's the very first step to being able to control your life and the things that happen to you, right? And if you're not in control of your own thoughts, you're never going to be in control of your own life. How can you fully believe in the power of your thoughts? Right. And people just don't grasp that, is how important what they're thinking truly is, even though it doesn't exist tangibly in life. And the example that I like to give is like schizophrenia, right? People who are schizophrenic. For someone who's schizophrenic that truly doesn't have control of their own brain and their own thoughts, if they think they're on fire, right? Someone's schizophrenic and they think they're on fire, and they start screaming and freaking out, you know that they actually feel that pain?
No.
So if someone is schizophrenic and they're mentally unstable and they think that they're on fire because of what they're hallucinating, they're not actually on fire, right? There's nothing going on with them physically, but they actually feel that pain because of the way that their brain is configured in the fact that it's unstable. If you were to actually study their brain, the pain receptors are actually being lit.
Yeah.
So they are actually feeling the pain that you can't see. And where is that pain coming from? Their thoughts.
Yeah. Because they're so, believing that they're on fire.
Exactly. It comes from their thoughts and their beliefs. So they are literally feeling the same pain that you would feel had you actually been on fire, simply because their thoughts and beliefs are surrounded by the fact that they actually are on fire. So take that to real life. If my thoughts are surrounded by, I can't be a fucking podcast host, no one's ever going to want to watch my episodes, no one's ever going to want to come on my show. That's what's actually going to happen.
That's facts.
Versus if I think I can create a very valuable experience for anyone who's willing to come on my show, I can create a very valuable episode for anyone who's willing to watch my podcast. Having that belief is what allows me to do it. Even if it's not true in the beginning, the belief alone will allow it to become true over time.
100%.
I have another story on belief that I like to tell people, and why self-belief is important, and the fact that if you don't believe something, that's the only thing that'll ever make something actually impossible. And it's the story of Roger Bannister. Roger Bannister was the first man on earth who had ever ran the 4-minute mile. And I can't remember exactly when this was. If I'm correct, it was somewhere in the 1960s, right? But the thing is that before Roger Bannister ran the 4-minute mile, Tadas, it was considered humanly impossible. From a medical, clinical standpoint, the studies scientifically showed that a human, and like what made a human body, would physically be incapable of running a mile in less than 4 minutes. Literally, it was impossible to run a 4-minute mile if you were human. and you weren't a fucking cheetah or some shit. So because of that belief, because it was scientifically and medically backed, no one ever ran a 4-minute mile because they thought it was impossible. Roger Bannister, with his psycho ass, didn't give a fuck. And he was like, fuck the doctors, fuck the science, fuck the studies. I think I can run a 4-minute mile. So I'm going to do it. He fully believed that he could do what was humanly impossible at the time. And he trained towards it and ended up fucking doing it. So Roger Bannister ran the first 4-minute mile when it was considered humanly impossible. But that's not the unique part about the story. You want to know what is? Within a fucking month, thousands of people across the world ran a 4-minute mile.
Oh, man.
You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah.
So starting with Roger Bannister's belief allowed him to be the first person to ever do it. Then once he broke that limiting belief across the entire world, thousands of people within 30 days were able to run that 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
And that's what the power of belief is.
That makes sense.
The only thing that can ever make something truly impossible is if you simply don't believe in it yourself.
Yeah. That's why belief is the hardest. Like, that one guy believed it. He had the guts to believe that one crazy thing. Then that belief was broken for everyone else, and then everyone else was like, "Oh, let's do it!" Like,
they didn't all get fucking
that's why beliefs are the
steroids.
hardest to break, and it comes from our nature, like how we're raised from our parents. Like, yeah, like if we're told, we have to go to school and then get a job, like that's what we're gonna think, and like to change that belief that you can actually do something on your own is gonna be like harder because, well, you were raised differently, and like to think that you can have a lot of money or have a company like that, those beliefs, they also need to be changed, and for you to fully like to go into that reality essentially. Yep. So that's crazy that you bring that up. And I think so. One thing I wanted to say, like, I think how people can change their beliefs about themselves is like, for me, how it started was like working out. Like, I started working out and I started seeing my body changing, and I started seeing myself put on muscle and get bigger and get stronger. It was like the first form of like, wow, I can actually like almost like change my circumstance, like change how I look just by working out. That was really like one of the first big personal development steps, was like just starting to work out and seeing how my body was changing, seeing that, oh, look, like I can actually do this. And then you get like this sense of like freedom when you realize that, look, you can change how your body looks. And that was like, I don't know, that was before anything. That was when I was still working a sales job, but then that kind of cascaded into everything else. Like, how do you change your beliefs?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You know how I said like there are two things that I've noticed amongst every successful entrepreneur I've spoken to, not just on the show, but also in general.
Yeah.
One was having a purpose. Two was having a vision. The third is focusing on personal and self-development and not just their business. None of them were even unhealthy, to be honest. So I see that amongst all successful young entrepreneurs, is that they all focus on personal and self-development and mindset and mental health. And I know that you personally focus on a lot of those things. And I want to break down like the things that you do in that regard. But before we get into that, I want to ask you, so with Tavo, you got to the point where you had created the minimum viable product for people to actually test and give you feedback on, right? Now, from that point, how did you get Tavo from a minimum viable product with 30 units that are out there in the world, with that minimum viable product is incomparable to the product we have between us today. But how did you get from that point to where Tavo is today?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of time passed between that. It was about two and a half years. So I had like taken a break after college and after the iVenture accelerator, just because it wasn't like a break. It was almost like Tavo was there, but I needed to find like a way to make money and to like survive and to live in the city. And I got a part-time job, and I was like just working a part-time job for a couple of years, or for like a year and a half. And then what happened was I was invited to speak about Tavo and like my experience with it, like building like a company or whatever. And this was at a Lithuanian Lithuanian dance festival that happens every 4 years in the US. And this year they had like a little section for business people. They were bringing in speakers. And so I was like called in or asked to be one of the speakers just to talk about my history with business and entrepreneurship. And I was like, so close to not going because I was like, I never had like spoken in front of people or like, I guess I've done pitches, but it was like a bit more than just doing a pitch because I had to like explain my story. And I went to, this was all in Philly. I landed and I remember the night before I was like practicing whatever I was going to say. And my friend's like, bro, like we're gonna like, I don't know what's going to happen. But
he's like, dog, you're about to crash and burn. Like, I don't know, maybe you can record it and send them a video. Yeah. Tell them you got in a crash or something.
Yeah. But no, it was, I woke up the next morning. I was just super like focused on, all right, like I'm gonna do this right. And I was walking around for a bit. And once I started talking, I just found a little bit of a groove and I just absolutely killed it. Like killed the whole presentation, told my whole story. At the end, basically, there was even a doctor who stood up and was like demoing our device and like adding to my presentation. And I was like a sleep doctor. And I was like, this is awesome. And long story short, that doctor is now working for us. Like,
let's fucking go,
advisor in sleep. But after I was so excited, I was like, I was like calling my mom, my girlfriend. I was like, yeah, I did it. Like, this was so fun. And they were so happy for me. And I was like telling them like all about these next steps because after like people were talking to me about like how we should do this and how we should do that. Meanwhile, back home, I'm still in this like part-time job. And so I'm like in a different reality in Philly. I'm experiencing like how it is to like be, I don't know, run a company, be
fully
a CEO.
consumed in Tavo.
How to be fully consumed. Yeah. And that night I was like, oh shoot, I have to go back to this like job or whatever. And I was like, all right, I need to figure out a way to like get out of it. Like I need to figure out a way.
I just want to pause you real quick before you continue because like I think there's a lot of value in just what you've said so far because of the fact that you were so close to not doing it.
Yeah.
And you had no idea what you were going to get out of that presentation.
Yeah.
And so many people are presented with fucking opportunities like that and they shy away from it because they're a bitch. I don't know what you want me to call it. Maybe I'm being a little too abrasive, but at the end of the day, like you need to take advantage of every fucking opportunity you're given, especially when you're not at a level to choose between certain opportunities.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, bro, Tavo might have not even existed if you didn't just take advantage of that speaking opportunity.
Yeah. No, 100%. I think about that all the time. And I was just because I was a little like nervous about public speaking. But I had this like entrepreneur come in and talk to us or talk to like a leadership group that I'm part of. And that kind of really, really pumped me up. And I was like, this guy went to Lithuania as a US person, as a US entrepreneur. And like, he didn't really know Lithuanian fluently, but he just stood up on stage, had no preparation of like what he was going to talk about. And then just kind of like, he started asking like, hey, what do you guys want to know about? And just gave a whole presentation in Lithuanian for an hour, just like on the spot. And that I was like, dang, if he can do that, like I can go and speak English about my company. And like right before the presentation, something that really like stuck with me is like, there's going to be like 50% of people that are inclined to like you, and then the 50% of people that are inclined to like not like you. That's just how the world works. Like people are gonna have their opinions, and not that like they hate you or something, but everyone just has their opinions. And so the advice was, don't try to please the 100%. Like don't try to make everyone like you, but just make people that are already inclined to like you more or love you. And that kind of got my nerves down. I was like, all right, like I don't have to like do a show or present or anything. Like I just have to like speak to my people.
Right.
What, tell them what they want to hear, like tell them about the company, like not necessarily like put it on me, but just like more so like give value and talk about the company. That's how I finally got through it and spoke to people. And yeah, at the end of the day, it was like I found my groove and I was like, hell yeah. And I was so on fire and I was like, I cannot go back to this job. and do whatever the hell I was doing. I was actually working a pretty cool job. I was boating. I was on Lake Michigan. I seriously had the best job you could want as a 20-year-old. I was a manager of a boat club. I was these members were coming in and we were essentially giving them boats. They were taking them out into Lake Michigan, but every time like there was a couple boats left or something. So like we had the time to when they come back, it was like 3-4 hours to do anything. And like we could take these boats out, we could drive them around Lake Michigan, and it was honestly like the coolest job ever. But at the end of the day, for me, it was like trading my time for someone else's passion, for like money, essentially trading my time for money. And I didn't feel like trading my time for money. Like I just felt like I could do so much more. I felt like I was limited.
You had a vision, man, and none of that boat job, like no matter how fun it was, it had no association to your vision, which is why there was no fulfillment for you from that. But the only reason I stopped you to highlight this part is because you stepped out of your comfort zone and you took advantage of an opportunity that met the current existence of your entire company, yet you could have never seen that that's what this opportunity could have meant. So when you're given an opportunity, whether it means you need to step out of your comfort zone or not, take advantage of the fucking opportunity, because you never know what can come from it. You never know what can come from it. No matter what the opportunity is, you always want to take advantage of it, because you don't know what that door could lead to. And if you didn't take advantage of that, Tavo might have not existed today. So I just wanted to take a moment and highlight that part of your story, because these small parts of people's stories who are now successful are what matter the most. These small decisions that they make that 90% of people typically won't make is what leads to allowing them to do things that 90% of people don't do. So, okay, so you decided at this point, like, you need to get the fuck out of this job. You're about to come back to Chicago. Then what happened?
Yeah. And another point on that, now I think about it differently. Like, so say you're sitting at home, you're watching Netflix, and you're invited to a party. Which one of those opportunities is going to give you more opportunity? Is it watching Netflix, or is it going to a party and potentially meeting some people that, are new and cool? It's obviously going to that party. So any decision like that, now I look at is like, what's going to put me in a spot that's going to give me even more opportunity.
Right.
And that's how, people can take that and just have make a decision. It's not that you have to be uncomfortable, but it's whichever one is going to give you more room to grow.
Yeah.
Watching Netflix or going out and meeting new people.
Yeah, I really like that you gave them a way to actually like break down how you can choose to take advantage of that opportunity, because it is easier said than done. And I'm kind of saying it abrasively, but it is easier said than done. And the way that you put it, I think is a way that people can understand what their thought process should be. That can allow them to make that right decision.
So I fly back, and I have to talk. I have to have another tough conversation with like my manager. Like, he thought I was just going on a trip, come back, all good, and I come back and I'm like, yo, I think there was like, I waited like a couple of days, but I was like, yo, like I am going to Lithuania. Like, I'm out. Like I can help you transition out of this, like me being manager and finding a new manager. But I was like, it's just not in me. I can't do it anymore. And I told him, like, he knew that I had this project going on and it was really important to me. And he was like, yeah, like, a good manager is going to want you to go after your dreams. They're not going to keep you in.
Of course.
And so that's what he did. Yeah. A couple of months, I think it was in July, and then in August, I was already in Lithuania. I had just set like this, almost like this also crazy goal of like going to a different country. I'm from Lithuania and I've been there multiple times, but I didn't really have like a set goal to go there. I was just like, I need to go and I need to just chase after this dream somehow. Maybe with the goal of finding some investors, maybe with the goal of finding like some teammates, maybe with the goal of like finding, I don't know, having some sort of breakthrough. But I was just like it was kind of like blind.
You were putting your back against the wall and you were putting yourself in a situation where like you didn't know what was going to happen, but whatever happened was going to be for Tavo.
Yeah.
I want to let you keep going, but I also want to ask, like, when you made this decision to basically go all in, you were putting yourself in a very scary state, because like working that boating job, you had income coming in every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that income didn't exist anymore, but obviously your bills still existed.
Yeah.
So like what was that like for you mentally, making that decision? How did your parents react to it? How did your friends react to it? Like, you were making what most people will always call a stupid decision, right? because you were leaving your income, putting all your eggs in a basket that wasn't generating an income yet. So can you tell me about that?
Yeah, I had a little bit of savings. I had a little bit of like crypto savings or like, I don't know, investment. And I just like, yeah, I knew it was a hard decision, but like the fact that I was so on fire in Philly about this kind of like was guiding me that I needed to do this. And I just felt this like almost like this destiny of like, this is what I need to do. And there was no way I was going to go back and work that job. And it was kind of like, I was really, really, really motivated to do that. And it was scary. It was like, you know, the first decision was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to like put my back against the wall, meaning like jump in fully. And like they say, like build the plane as you're falling, the entrepreneurship analogy. And so I was just prepared to do that. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know, and I had read a lot of books at this point where they like, they talk about like, if you put your back against the wall, meaning like you give yourself no other option, but just to go for this thing that you're going for, the universe, the world tends to kind of like work with you, work for you, and push you in that right direction. Yeah. And it happened exactly like that.
And were you being like supported in your decision? Because I think that's what most people, and if not, then that's a blessing. But like most people, like their parents will tell them, no, you shouldn't do that, you can't do that, or their friends will be like, bro, you're an idiot. Like, were you being fully supported, or? It
was mixed, you know. Like my parents knew that I was working on this thing, but they didn't really know like what to think of it. They didn't know whether it was gonna be a big thing or just like a little project. And my grandpa was like, what are you doing with these boats? Like, how are you going to make like a family with these boats? And I was like, all right, well, at least there's some push of like getting out of the boat job. But no, in the beginning, it's like, there wasn't much support. My parents were just mainly confused. My grandpa was telling me to get out of this boat job. And my girlfriend was also saying that, why are you going to get out of this? Like, why are you going to Lithuania? Why are you leaving your full-time job that you're getting paid for? And I was just like, I have to do this. Like, I have to do this for some reason, something inside of me. I just followed my inner guidance. Like, I was like, my intuition, that's where it really stemmed from. I didn't look for external validation at that point. I had already known that I wanted to make this decision. And sometimes that's what it takes. Like, you can't expect your family to be like, yes, man, fully on board if you start, doing something totally that's out of the societal norm. Like, yeah, if your family is a family of entrepreneurs, they would probably understand, but in many cases, your family's not a bunch of entrepreneurs. There wasn't much support in the beginning, but I think, fast forward like now and fast forward like a year ago, when after coming back from Lithuania, after like really, really putting my back against the wall, like taking some loans out, that was like another thing that I did. I took loans out, and because my buddy told me that, look, like this is how investors invest. They take basically a loan out from wherever, from people, and they execute it into these companies. And that's how like startup funding works to a degree. And I was like, all right, but I can do that myself. And I knew that I was putting my back against the wall because I was like, well, I can't just take out loans and then not pursue it. Right. So that was another point where I was like, I'm really putting my back against the wall, and I'm just going to kind of try to move forward. And at that point, I was really fully in it. Like, that was like one of the best times of my life, because I was like, I'm totally in it. My back is against the wall, and somehow I'm able to pay these bills every month, whether it's from savings, whether it was from, I don't know, like I honestly don't even remember the details of how I paid my groceries.
You were living like a bum, bro.
I was living like a bum. Yeah. I didn't know how I was gonna pay myself at all. And, dude, man. And after a year of that, after really building Tavo, building like the app, finding a development team in Lithuania, I actually met up with like this co-founder now, not co-founder, but co-founder of a different company, who they did like 3 million in their first year or 2 million in the first year. And I just randomly like messaged him on LinkedIn, met up with him in Lithuania, and now he's like one of my mentors. And that's like, I don't know, another thing of like, just like randomly I don't know, just like believing that you can do something and not being like, oh, not thinking about it too much, just kind of feeling it and doing it, feeling and doing versus feeling, thinking, and then doing.
Yeah.
And so now, like my parents, like it's awesome to see that, because like whenever we have like a big video or reel or something going, it's like, it's got like 10K views. Like I remember getting pictures from my cousin and they're all like posting it on their Facebook and they're like, let's go. And so at this point it's like, yes, it's like finally got that support. But like it took a while. It took like 3-4 years. Like at first my parents were like, what are you doing? Like finish college, like I dropped out because I was pursuing this. It was COVID and I was in the middle of doing both school and Tavo. And one day I remember like I was trying to do both too much, where I woke up with a super big migraine and I couldn't do like my speech. And that was like almost like for me, it was like a sign that I shouldn't, try to wrap my hands around too many things. I should just focus on one, because it's gonna like hurt, like hinder me mentally. I just decided to go after it. And so I hadn't finished college, and there was so much talk about, why aren't you finishing you only have like 2 classes left. Like I literally only had a semester left, but it didn't seem like, for me, finishing college wasn't like, I'm going to get a degree and I'm going to go and show my like employers. Like I didn't care about that. Like I had learned what I had learned from college and it was amazing. I don't regret that at all. Like go to college if you want. But I think like when the time was right for me, I exited, even though I didn't have that degree. I almost like felt like I got what I needed to from there.
Dude, you got out of college what most of these people think that they're going to get. You know what I mean? Like what most people should be getting out of education, and like what most people actually get is that piece of paper that doesn't mean shit. And you just knew that it wouldn't mean shit, so there was no point. And at the end of the day, the man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that was very important. But the reason I stopped you so that you could talk about this is because that's what most people don't realize, is that this shit ain't sweet. You know what I mean? You are where you are now because you lived like you were broke as fuck, because you were broke as fuck for an entire year. You took out loans, you left your job, you traveled to a new country, you dropped out of college. And all of that is what led you to where you are today, which is what now everyone gets to see and think of their own determination of how you got there. But it was literally just swallowing your ego, putting your back against the wall, living through all the shit so you can get to the glory, right? And also that, like, look, even the people that love you most in this world are not going to support you when you're trying to do things that are against societal norms, just because they don't understand it. And you shouldn't even expect them to. And it's sad, sure, maybe a little bit, but prove it to them. Yeah. And focus on only what's internally within you, because no one will ever believe in you or what you're trying to accomplish more than you do.
Yeah.
And if someone does believe in it more than you do, that's a problem in and of itself. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to highlight that, because like this shit ain't all sunshine and rainbows, and it wasn't for you, nor was it for anyone who's successful. That's the shit. That's the journey that people are not going to be exposed to when there's a million Tavos across the country or across the world. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's what people need to realize, is that if they want to get to a point, if they want to get to anywhere near where you've gotten to, they're going to have to go through that war. They're going to have to go through that battle. Yeah. And they have to just persevere and get out of it.
It's a spiritual battle. It's a battle with your own beliefs. Like just trying to wrap your head around like, okay, I can do this actually, versus like, I can't do this, versus like, this is just something that you're born with, or something that like you're gifted, which is, I don't think so. Like we are put in circumstances and situations, everyone, each their own. But at the end of the day, I think like what, going back to the college story of like, it really started for me when I started investing in myself, in my learning, in doing things that I wanted to do. I wasn't like, if you're going through college, following directions and then like completing all their tests and everything, like that's good. But like, that's exactly what you're going to be doing in the real world. You're just going to be doing a bunch of like tests, in a different form. Fire. And you're just going to be following directions like you were in college. Mm-hmm. When you start to invest in yourself, when you start to read, when you start to like really try to learn things by yourself and teach yourself, that's when like things like, I don't know, entrepreneurship can become like a reality, because no one's going to teach you how to like run your own company. Like that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
You might have mentors, but like no one's going to be like, all right, now Tadas, you should do this. You have to like come up with that. And that was also a learning too. Like I thought that I had to be told what to do or like granted, like making a decision like that someone else has to agree with the same decision. So it's been a learning curve for me to learn how to actually, okay, I'm in a startup. Like I guess in the beginning you want to mimic the structure that companies have because you have no structure. But then one of my friends said to me, he was like, yo, you're working at a startup. That's so cool. Like how much freedom do you have to just do anything? And at that point, like this is a couple years ago, I was like, oh shit, like he's kind of right. Like I do have the freedom. But like at that point, 2 years ago, I was trying to like build a structure of like what that other companies have. And that the freedom was like too much for me. And now like going back to the story, like I have to almost like learn that belief that I can just, like use my intuition, continue to use my intuition, continue to like make decisions by myself and for myself. Not that, I don't want to make a decision with the team, but just like, it's that belief thing again, where you're like your whole life, you're thinking that you need to ask someone for permission, where like the only permission you need to ask is like yourself. And like, that's the real permission when you start doing things from yourself and because you really care about them or because like you want to learn more about it. That's like the biggest thing. Cause yeah, like other than that, like you're just going through school, you're doing your homework, you're doing your tests, and then boom, graduate, do the same thing at work.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah, I think that's why personal and self-development, mindset, reading, just developing yourself is just as important as working on your business. But so from this point in your story, you put your back against the wall, you moved to Lithuania, you dropped out of college, you're in loans, you're not making shit for money, you can barely pay for your groceries, but you did all of that, which led you to where Tavo is today. And can you tell us where Tavo is today?
Yeah, we just launched in December. After building for a year. So after Lithuania, we were heads down focused, building this product, building the software of it, the box, all the branding, the design, going through like manufacturing with China and all that, like that learning curve of like 6 weeks of teaching someone over email of like all these little nuances of the bracelet and giving feedback and then finally getting the batch, being so excited, but then half of it's shit. Half of it comes in and it's just totally like, it's just bad. It's like, it looks like a third grader made it. And I had to like even deal with that. Like, and I guess you start to learn that like things like that, like entrepreneurship is like a constant journey, like upstream, you're just constantly going. So like, you just get used to like these problems. Like, yeah, okay, this is another problem. We just have to like kind of align it. We have to like tell these people, okay, like we're going to do it like this rather than this. And it's like, it's all a learning curve because you're just constantly going against the grain.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like we launched some units. We have, I think only like a couple left, honestly, like 50 or 60 left in our current batch, which we're using. Like this batch is like, it's a soft launch. So we're developing the systems in the back end, how customer service works, how supply chain works, how actually if 2,000 people ordered, could we fulfill those orders? And I believe in a sustainable business. I don't want to just like what they call Chad scaling, where you just like market the crap out of it and then you get 1 million orders, but then you can't fulfill those orders. Even though you have like 2 million in the bank, you can't fulfill those orders.
Right.
So, the business can fail that way. So I was like really familiar with that method, like how to not fuck up that way. And I wanted to make sure to build a sustainable business. So right now we're literally just focused on like the sustainability things. We're keeping it almost like low key. We're not like pushing advertisements and really going, balls to the wall with marketing and ads, just because we're still figuring out the supply chain. And now our next shipments are coming in. They're way better. They're going to be all 100%. Thankfully, or hopefully they're going to be, 100% good. And the goal is to really get it to a point where we can, if someone does place an order for 2,000 units, we can then deliver on that. So that's what I'm worried about now. That's what my job is putting these back end systems into place so that the business could actually be sustainable. And so it's not like, oh, we have too much demand and we can't fulfill on that. And so, yeah, that's everything from supply chain, from marketing, even figuring out how the ads will work, reviews. And the one thing that I'm super happy about is like when we launch a product, the feedback has been phenomenal. Like, I feel like it's like a close knit family now because there's so many, like, there's not that many, there's not like 1,000 users, but it's
how many Tavos are out there right now?
I think over 100. So
that's
over
fucking beautiful, bro.
Yeah.
That's fucking beautiful.
Yeah. It's cool. And so now we're testing with doctors. Not that like, I guess this whole thing, this doctor thing is because doctors, nurses, EMTs, they really use alarm clocks to wake up and they're like relying on alarm clocks. So like they wake up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. Some have night shifts. So we found that this product works to a higher probability and gives people better results. Primarily people who like rely on alarm clocks to wake up. So doctors are one thing. And then it works really well for entrepreneurs as well, who are kind of trying to get after it, trying to have a good sleep schedule. And dude, the last thing you want is that beeping noise in the morning. Anyone really is that beeping noise in the morning.
Bro, it makes me want to fucking kill myself.
Yeah. It's morning. Like it's so bad. It's like,
I shouldn't have said that. 'Cause that's a very bad thing to mess around about. But seriously, I mean, I just hate feeling like shit some days and feeling great some days. So I'm just like, man, why can't I just feel normal waking up every day?
Yeah. So one thing we learned from our users, we were pushing this light sleep thing super hard, and like, you know, the vibration thing, it was good. But then a user was like, yeah, I really like waking up to the vibration. Like that's like a huge difference to me. And actually, like, yes, like that's what makes Tavo. It's like the combination of the silent and the light sleep. Yeah, because I don't know, like waking up on a rainy day or something in the morning, 6 a.m. Monday. Like, no, dude, like I cannot even imagine that anymore. Versus like just a little like zzz, just like zzz, buzz on your wrist, and like the main difference is that you're not being forced awake by something that is unnatural and irritable to your body, to your ears when you're sleeping, and it's not forcing you out of bed. But Tavo is like it's like a tap on the shoulder, and it's like, hey, it's time to get up, because it already senses that you're awake, and it works and just works so like subtly that it doesn't have like an ability to like distract you or disrupt you or stress you out in the morning so much. And you know, these things sound like minimal things, but it makes such a difference when you're waking up from your sleep after a 7-6 hour, you know, night, 8 hour night, whatever it is.
I can't even imagine.
Just waking up out of sleep to that, to Tavo is that's why it's so like, it makes such a difference, that like just that quietness of that buzz. And it like, it helps us get in tune with our sleep cycles more. Like people now who have used Tavo say that they have fundamentally changed how they view their sleep. So they're not viewing it as like quantity wise, they're looking at quality, and they're looking at when they're going to bed, they're looking at when they're waking up. They understand sleep cycles more. So another big thing with Tavo is like, I wanted to educate people about sleep, because through this app that I was telling you about, I learned so much about sleep. I learned that we sleep in cycles, and that there's a good time to wake up, that there's a bad time to wake up. So Tavo is like a vehicle for people. Not only is it just a product or the next generation alarm clock, or, you know, the alarm clock reinvented, but it's also a product that is like bridging the gap of understanding for people of sleep, and teaching them about sleep, teaching them how we actually sleep. And because, you know, some people say, yo, we have Apple iWatch, we have all this, you know, Fitbit, but how many of those products are actually focused totally on sleep?
None. I mean, they could wake you up, but not that. And I haven't even tried Tavo yet, but like learning about your product is what taught me about sleep and sleep cycles, and that's why some days, although it's 5 a.m. every day, some days I feel like shit, some days I feel great. It's because of the sleep cycle that I was in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that you're looking to teach people about sleep through the product.
So yeah,
as well.
that's why I said we're building sleep tech, because there's barely any sleep tech out there. We have, you know, maybe like the rings that are out there, but that is not an alarm clock. That's going to only monitor your whole day's HRV and your night's HRV, your heart rate variability. But that's it. You know, it's like, it's not even a sleep product. And like, there's no wearable out there There's no like specific, wearable tech that's totally meant for sleep. And that's something we're trying to change. That's something we're bringing into the market because sleep is so important. We sleep 1/3 of our lives, and we're obsessed with nutrition and obsessed with working out. And then like sleep, which is a third pillar of our health, is totally kind of like forgotten. But now we're seeing a lot more popularity. Like I said, Apple Watch, Oura Ring, all those things are now like pushing sleep more and pushing. And just not pushing sleep, but like people are interested in that. And that's why the companies are responding. So 5 years ago, this was a really, really crazy idea. Like, why are you building sleep tech, right?
Yeah.
Now it's like a little bit, it's like we're seeing the market validation from other companies building stuff. And like people will always be building and innovating, but it's cool to see that people are actually, that the market is moving this way. It's moving into sleep tech, into wellness. So that's like, I find that super kind of like reassuring. And sleep is also, it's not like a fad, like AI or like, some things like just blow up really quick and then they disappear. Like sleep has been kind of like slowly increasing in just value and how much people want to know about it. Because 50 years ago, we didn't know about maybe like all the sleep cycles that go through our brain. And we're just finding that out through new science and new technology. And like in 10 years from now, I 100% believe that every alarm clock is going to be synced to your sleep cycle, because why would you wake up in the middle of your sleep cycle? There's no reason to.
Yeah, true.
There's no reason.
Yeah, I love that, man. It sounds like you guys are really going to be at the forefront of this industry change. But also with the fact that you guys are revolutionizing it yourselves, that's fucking amazing. Can I actually check out the product?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Let's check it out, man. I've been excited for this.
Let's check it out.
Tavo V1.0, the next generation alarm. How did you come up with Tavo from fucking silent alarm clock?
Tavo. So Tavo means, it actually means yours in Lithuanian. So we want, like, because it was a personal alarm clock and because it's the idea of only waking you up, Tavo felt like a very, very fitting name. It's like, it's yours. And it's also like, I wanted to have something that's not super Lithuanian, like not like some word that no one can pronounce, but just kind of subtly throw it in there. And I took inspiration from companies like Sony and Bose, which have like these 4-letter, like just words that don't mean anything. So Tavo kind of felt like it fell into that category of, hey, just like a cool word to say, no meaning really, but it has a meaning Lithuanian, which like only 3 million people know about, or whoever knows about Lithuania. And it just kind of felt really fitting. So
that's fucking awesome.
That was, I remember designing the logo even, and then someone was like, hey, you should flip the A the other way. And then the logo was like, it looked really nice after that. So
that's awesome. So Tavo means yours in Lithuanian.
Yeah, it means yours in Lithuanian. So it's a pronoun.
Dude, that makes so much sense, because that's what this product is all about. Is like, everyone can set an alarm clock for 5 a.m. and it'll go off at 5 a.m. But this is waking you up based off of your sleep. Mm-hmm. Says your mission is empowering individuals through quality sleep to unlock their fullest potential and performance.
Heck yeah.
Sleep is king, and I'm lucky enough to be with the king of sleep himself, huh?
Heck yeah. Yeah.
Tavo, definition, yours, belonging to you. Tavo Sleep is all about your wake-up experience. I like this card.
Yeah,
so you just charge it with the cord. So that's pretty simple.
Charge it with the cord. And the idea actually of Tavo in the future, like 10, 20 years, not even that. I mean, technology's moving at a pretty big pace, but making something that like wakes you up when you're ready to, and gets better and better and better the more you use it, through AI, through machine learning, so that essentially like now, we set like 10 alarms on our phone. But instead of that, we have Tavo, which comes on, you just put it on, and it's like basically already knows when the best time is for you to wake up based on how you set it, based on when you need to wake up. And boom, it just does that in the morning, so that every morning you feel completely like alert, focused.
What about, I feel like a lot of people would ask this. So like, it's going to wake me up in my light sleep, but what if like I got something important and I need to wake up by 5 a.m., but it's like midnight. So obviously like, if Tavo's studying me, it's probably going to know that I'm not getting enough sleep if I wake up at 5.
Yeah, so it's actually a universal alarm. So even if you want to sleep 3 hours, it'll work with your sleep cycle. And essentially, like, yeah, if you want to wake up by 5, well, then you'd probably get only 4.5 hours, because that's three sleep cycles. Yeah, one would be 90 minutes, the other would be 3 hours, and then the third one would be 4.5 hours. So I've actually done that, and I've measured it also. Like, we were doing studies now, I measured it on a ring and everything, and